The crystalline passageways of the diplomatic vessel Meridian's grace shimmered with bioluminescent light. Yet the tension in the air had nothing to do with engines or flight. It was a different kind of pressure, quiet, watchful, intimate. The kind that followed a rumor. Commander Sirath of the Catheran Imperial Guard stood as if carved from polished stone. Emerald skin caught the ship's blue glow. The small scales along her throat darkened and lightened with her breath, betraying what her posture refused to admit. Her four-fingered hand rested on the ceremonial plasma blade at her hip. Habit, not need. The weapon had belonged to her bloodline for 12 generations. It was a symbol of victories earned and enemies' humbled proof that the House of Sirath did not bend. Until it did. Your husband is in the observation lounge, Lieutenant Caros said. His voice remained neutral in the way soldiers learned when speaking to royalty. His third eye stayed respectfully closed, though Sirath couldn't decide whether the gesture was deference or discomfort. He is cataloging. Sirath's jaw tightened. Cataloging. The human Michael had brought crates of physical objects aboard the ship, thin, bound rectangles of plant matter layered with printed symbols. Books, he called them. He'd also insisted on bringing a device he referred to as a coffee maker, as if the ship's synthesizers were personally insulting his ancestors. Books, coffee, rituals. She had been trained to count threats, not pages, and yet here she was, defeated not by blades or tactics, but by treaties. A princess bonded to a stranger for trade routes and political reassurance. Earth's alliance with the Catheran Empire was valuable enough that her life had become a clause. She strode through the corridor, armor clicking softly at each step. Crew members Catheran and allied species alike moved aside. Their eyes followed her, their whispers skittering behind her like insects. They all knew the truth. She had been given away. The lounge doors hissed open. Inside, Michael sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by neat stacks of books arranged with near-military precision. His attention was fixed on a worn volume in his hands, the spine carefully reinforced with a thin strip of adhesive. He worked with steady patience, as if the object mattered. When he looked up, his face brightened into one of those human expressions that showed far too many teeth. Sirath, he said, as if her rival was a pleasant accident. Perfect timing. I was just about to make coffee. He unfolded to his feet compact by Catheran's standards and moved toward a contraption of glass, metal, and coiled tubing he had assembled on the table. Would you like some? He asked. The synthesizers do an okay imitation, but nothing beats the real thing. I do not require stimulants, Sirath said, her voice crisp enough to cut. Michael didn't flinch. It's not about the caffeine. It's the ritual, the smell, the warmth, the time it forces you to take. He poured dark beans into a grinder. My grandmother used to say coffee was an excuse to slow down for 5 minutes. Your grandmother was a warrior, Sirath asked, unable to keep the skepticism from her tone. Michael laughed, a sound she was still learning to interpret as harmless. No, she was a librarian. Sirath tasted the word like something bitter. A librarian. Fiercest woman I ever knew, he added, grinding beans with calm enthusiasm. once chased off 3 gang members who were harassing kids near her library, beat them with her walking stick. He spoke of it with the pride of someone describing a legendary duel. Seraph watched him work. There was something disciplined in his movements, measured, methodical, practiced, not unlike weapon maintenance, not unlike prayer. "You brought physical copies," she said, gesturing to the stacks. "The ship's database contains millions of texts. It's not the same." His voice warmed with conviction. "A real book has weight, texture, smell, history." He lifted the repaired volume with reverence. "This is a first edition of Dune, printed in 1965. My great-great-grandfather bought it new. You can see where he wrote notes in the margins, where my great-grandmother spilled wine on page 103, where my father folded corners on his favorite passages." He traced the worn paper gently. "It's not just a story. It's proof my family existed. It's the memory of their hands." Despite herself, Seraph stepped closer. The book looked fragile, but he held it the way she held her ancestral blade, not as property, but as lineage. "This bond," she said abruptly. "You understand what it is?" Michael's hands paused. Only a moment. Then he continued smoothing the tape into place. "A political alliance," he said, as calmly as reciting a briefing. "Trade routes, security cooperation. A signal to the galaxy that Earth isn't alone." Seraph's throat, scales darkened. "And you accept being chained to someone who sees you as a diplomatic necessity." Michael looked up. There was something steady in his brown eyes, something that did not beg and did not apologize. "My people have a saying," he said. "Love is a choice you make every day." Seraph almost scoffed. Catherans did not love. They claimed. They conquered. They protected what they owned with iron loyalty. But Michael continued, quiet and unwavering. "We're strangers now, Seraph. We don't have to stay that way." She felt the words strike something in her that had no name. "You should know," she said, forcing her voice into warning. "Many on this ship see you as weak, a liability. If there's an emergency, I'll get in the way," Michael said, finishing the thought as if he'd rehearsed it. He poured water into a narrow kettle and set it over a heating element. "I know. I'm not a soldier. I never wanted to be. I'm just a guy who fixes things and reads books." The resignation in his tone surprised her. Not self-pity. Not defiance. Simply acceptance. The coffee maker gurgled and hissed, releasing a scent that curled through the air sharp, dark, strangely comforting. Michael poured 2 cups anyway. Into one he added a careful splash from a small metal flask. Real cream, Seraph realized, a luxury this far from Earth. He offered her a cup. "Try it," he said. "Consider it cultural exchange." She took it. Warmth seeped into her fingers. The first sip was bitter and rich, softened by the cream's sweetness. It was not unpleasant. Michael settled among his books with his own cup. "So," he said lightly, "tell me about that blade you carry. It looks like it has a story." For reasons Seraph did not understand, she answered. She spoke of the blade's forging, of the ceremonies, of the battles it had witnessed. Michael listened with genuine attention. asking questions that proved he was absorbing each detail. When she mentioned the Battle of Three Suns, he didn't ask how many enemies she killed, or how glorious the victory was. He asked, quietly, "Who? Did you lose?" No one had asked her that before. Something in her chest shifted, subtle and unsettling. Days turned into a pattern. Michael spent mornings in the engineering bay, helping repair systems with a mechanic's instinct that impressed even the ship's technicians. In the afternoons, he returned to the lounge with his books and his coffee, repairing spines, organizing stacks, sometimes reading aloud. Seraph began joining him. At first, she told herself it was duty ensuring the diplomatic asset remained functional. Then it became habit. Then it became something else. "This is inefficient," she told him one day as he painstakingly restored another battered volume. "You could print a fresh copy." He looked up, amused. "Where's the soul in that?" He tapped the worn cover. "This book has been loved. It's been through things. It survived. Doesn't that earn it some care?" Seraph thought of her ancestral blade, maintained across centuries. Perhaps care was simply another kind of honor. Lieutenant Keros, ever watchful, noticed, "You spend considerable time with the human," he observed during a security briefing. "I ensure the diplomatic asset remains intact." Seraph replied, "He is teaching you to make coffee, cultural intelligence gathering." Keros's third eye opened in skepticism, but he said nothing more. 2 weeks into the journey, Seraph found Michael on the observation deck, staring into the starfield. His usual brightness had dimmed. "You are troubled," she said. "Just thinking about Earth," he replied. "Funny how you leave home to see the universe. But the universe mostly makes you miss what you left behind. You could have refused the bond contract," Seraph said. Michael turned with a faint, sad smile. "Could I birth needs this alliance? We're new out here, surrounded by civilizations that could erase us without effort." He looked back to the stars. "If my marriage helps keep my world safe, isn't that worth it?" "You speak like a warrior," Seraph said, surprised. "No," Michael corrected softly. "I speak like someone who loves something enough to sacrifice for it." Seraph frowned. "What is the difference?" He exhaled. "Warriors sacrifice others for victory. Love means sacrificing yourself for others." Before she could respond, alarms tore through the ship. Red emergency lights flooded the corridor. The deck lurched hard enough that Michael stumbled. Seraph caught him automatically, her strength anchoring them both. The captain's voice thundered over comms. "Battle stations. We are under attack." Seraph's training snapped into place. She shoved Michael behind a reinforced bulkhead. "Stay here," she ordered. "Do not move." "Seraph, you are not a warrior," she said, harsh with fear she refused to name. "Stay hidden, stay alive. That is an order." Michael's face flickered with something unreadable, but he nodded. "Be careful," he said. A human telling a Catheran princess to be careful was absurd, and yet she felt it like a hand on her back as she ran. The attackers were Ravager's cybernetic pirates with weapons. Grafted into flesh, armor fused to bone, they poured through a breach in the cargo bay. their augmentations letting them survive vacuum exposure long enough to board. Plasma fire lit the bay. Seraph joined Karos and 3 guards already engaged. Her blade hummed to life, singing with contained energy. This was her world. This was her certainty. She cut through pirates with practiced precision, moving like the heir to 12 generations of victory. Together, her team pushed the Ravagers back toward the breach. Then the second team hit. An explosion shook the deck. Seraph flew hard, armor scraping metal. Her blade spun away into smoke. When her vision cleared, she saw them, a full squad advancing through the ruined bulkhead. Karos struggled to rise, green blood seeping through fractures in his armor. The other guards lay still. Seraph was weaponless. The Ravager leader was a towering patchwork of metal and stolen military-grade upgrades. One eye was organic, the other was a cold sensor lens. His voice came through a speaker grafted into his throat. The mighty Seraph, he rasped, the Empire's princess. You'll fetch a beautiful ransom. He tilted his head. Or perhaps we sell you on Torvin Prime. Flesh markets pay extra for warriors. Seraph dropped into a fighting stance anyway. Her hands were empty, but her will was not. Surrender, the Ravager leader said, lifting his weapon, or we start taking pieces. Non-vital first. Weapons charged. Seraph calculated angles, distances, odds. There were none. Then whizzing, a light, cheerful human tune floated through the smoke behind the pirates, so wrong Seraph's mind almost refused it. The Ravagers turned. Michael walked out of the haze, carrying an emergency fire suppressant canister, as if it were nothing more than a tool. His posture had changed. No slouch, no softness. Each step was deliberate, balanced, quiet. He kept whizzing. The Ravager leader began. Hull Michael threw the canister. It struck the nearest pirate's head with a brutal crack of bone and circuitry. Before the body hit the deck, Michael was moving, not like a soldier drilled into ceremony, like someone who had learned to fight in places where rules were fantasies. He ripped a kinetic rifle from the falling pirate and fired from the hip 3 shots. 3 Ravagers down before they understood they were dying. A Ravager with blade arms charged. Michael stepped inside the arc with terrifying calm. His hands blurred. There was a sharp crack, and the pirate collapsed with its neck turned the wrong direction. Kill him, the leader roared. Gunfire erupted. Michael dove behind cargo, rose with a fallen guard's plasma pistol, and returned fire with uncanny accuracy. More than accuracy, he controlled the chaos. He forced the Ravagers into each other's lines of sight, herding them into mistakes. A flanker tried to circle. Michael pivoted, snatched a broken support strut, and swung with ruthless economy first at the knee, shattering joint and machinery. Then at the skull, ending it. He pulled a grenade from another fallen pirate, yanked the pin with his teeth, and tossed it into a cluster. Smoke blossomed. Michael was already inside it. What followed was not a battle so much as a dismantling. Michael used anything as a weapon: helmets, torn plating, shattered tools. He struck without ceremony, without flourish, only purpose. The Ravager leader, finally alone, aimed an armed cannon. Michael smiled. Not the warm, toothy smile Seraph had learned to tolerate. This one was older, sharper. A predator's memory. You know, what's funny? Michael said conversationally, circling. Everyone thinks Earth is weak because we're new to FTL. They see our colony ships and our cheap weapons and assume we're prey. The cannon fired. Michael wasn't there. But here's what they don't teach in xenobiology. He continued and bent to pick up Seraph's fallen plasma blade. It should not have activated for him. It was keyed to Catheran biometrics bloodline. Authentication, ancestral coding. The blade flared to life anyway, humming as if it recognized something in him. We didn't evolve as apex predators, Michael said. We evolved as persistence hunters. Not the strongest, not the fastest. But we don't stop. The Ravager charged, hydraulics snarling. Michael waited until the last breath of time dropped low, slid under the bulk, and cut upward. The plasma blade severed tendons, hydraulic lines, and reinforced muscle. The Ravager crashed to the deck. Michael stood over him. You made one mistake, he said, voice suddenly cold. You threatened my wife. The blade fell. Silence. Seraph could hear only her own breathing and the distant hum of the ship trying to stay alive. Michael stood among the bodies of 17 Ravagers, splattered with blood and hydraulic fluid, her ancestral blade glowing in his hand. His eyes swept the carnage with professional assessment, checking for movement, confirming the kill. Then he saw her watching. Something softened. Shame, perhaps, or grief. He deactivated the blade and walked toward her, offering it handle first. I believe this is yours, he said quietly. Seraph took it automatically. Her mind lagged behind reality. You are not a librarian's son, she said, voice rough. I am, Michael replied. He looked down at his stained hands. But I was other things first. What things? He was silent long enough for the ship's alarms to feel distant. Earth isn't the paradise the diplomatic corps sells, he said at last. Before we reached the stars, we fought each other, constantly. I was young and angry and good at violence. His jaw tightened. Special operations. The kind of work that doesn't officially exist. You were a warrior, Seraph said. No. Michael's answer was immediate. Warriors have honor. I was a weapon. Point me at a problem, and I'd solve it no matter the cost. The words carried old pain. One day I realized I was becoming something I couldn't live with. He continued. So, I left. Spent years trying to remember how to be human again. His gaze flicked toward the scattered books. Books helped. Coffee helped. Rituals. Normal life. He swallowed. When first contact happened, Earth needed diplomats more than soldiers. People who could build bridges instead of burning them. So when they offered this marriage, he gave a bitter laugh. I thought it was a chance to do something good, to be more than what I was. Seraph looked around at the wounded, the wrecked bulkhead, the bodies. You saved us, she said. You saved me. Michael's shoulders sagged, and I became the thing I swore I wouldn't be again. His voice cracked. The violence was still there, waiting. Seraph stepped closer, her grip tightening. On the blade, not in threat, but in recognition. They were never signs of weakness. She realized suddenly, thinking of his books, his careful coffee, his gentle patience. They were restraints, chains forged by a man afraid of himself. "You are not a weapon," she said. Michael's eyes lifted, wary. "A weapon has no choice," Seraph continued. You chose to protect." She drew a slow breath. "You chose me." Caros limped into the bay supported by another guard. His eyes, too, and third were wide with shock and something like awe. "The human," he whispered. "How?" Seraph turned sharply. "The human has a name," she said, voice carrying command and something fiercer. "His name is Michael Harrison. He is my husband, and he is under my protection." Michael blinked, as if the words struck deeper than any wound. From everyone, Seraph thought, including himself. They spent the night repairing damage and tending injuries. Michael's hands so lethal moments before moved with careful gentleness. As he bound wounds and steadied the frightened, he distracted a young engineer while resetting a broken arm by telling a story about a desert planet, and a boy who learned to survive. Seraph watched him and understood. He was not split into two people. He was one person, choosing every day which part would lead. When the crisis finally quieted, they returned to the observation lounge. Michael gathered his scattered books, checking each one like a medic checking pulse. "That old Earth book," Seraph said, nodding at the worn dune. "Is it intact?" "A little blood on the cover," Michael said, exhaling. "But it survived worse." He glanced up. "Books are tougher than people think. Sometimes people are, too." Seraph helped him stack them, treating the volumes with the care she would show an honored blade. When they finished, she didn't leave. "Tell me about Earth," she said. "Not the official version, the real one." So he did. He spoke of skies that could turn violent without warning, of cities lit through the night, of forests that swallowed the careless, deserts that killed with beauty. He spoke of human history, its brutality, its courage, its stubborn hope. "We're not naturally good," he admitted. "We have to choose it, over and over. Sometimes we fail, but we keep trying." Seraph looked at his books. "Is that why you brought them?" "Stories remind us who we could be," he said. "Both the best and worst versions, warnings and promises. We have no fiction on Catheria." Seraph said slowly, "Only histories." Michael's smile returned gentler. "This time, then you're missing half the truth," he said. "Facts tell you what happened. Stories tell you what it meant." Seraph hesitated, then made a decision that felt like stepping into battle. "Read to me," she said. He chose a book perhaps, at random, perhaps not, and began. His voice painted scenes in the dim blue light, weaving impossible things into something that felt, strangely, honest. When the captain announced their approach to the Catheran border, neither of them had slept. "We dock in 3 hours," Seraph said. "My family will want to meet you. They will test you." "I know," Michael said, closing the book. "They will not see what I see," Seraph added. Michael studied her. "What do you see?" she thought carefully, because Catherans did not waste words. "I see someone who makes me curious about tomorrow," she said, "for her people." It was nearly a declaration, Michael's smile, his real one, was worth the risk. I see someone who makes me want to be worth knowing. You are already worth knowing, Seraph said. Then I want to be worth keeping. The weeks that followed brought court politics and challenges, suspicion and scrutiny. But Michael, with stories instead of intimidation, began to win over cadets and nobles alike. Seraph, with loyalty sharpened into something warmer, stood beside him. 5 months later, the Meridian's grace was only a memory, replaced by a heavily armed cruiser. The Empire did not take chances with its princess anymore, not after discovering what humans could do when cornered. Michael was offered a place in the Imperial Guard. He declined. I fix things, he said simply. I don't break them. Not anymore. Instead, he became something no one had expected, the Imperial Librarian, tasked with building Catheria's first great collection of fiction from across the galaxy. When skeptics scoffed, he argued that a people's stories were strategic intelligence. If you want to predict what a civilization will do, he told the Emperor, read what they tell their children. The Emperor, pragmatic as always, saw the value. Seraph often watched from the doorway of Michael's growing library as young cadets gathered around him. He taught them tactics through myths and riddles, how cunning could overcome brute strength, how language could become a weapon, how understanding could win wars without bloodshed. After one class, she stepped in. You are corrupting our youth, she said, expanding their minds. Michael corrected, shelving a book with the same careful reverence he used for everything he loved. There's a difference. Seraph's tone softened. The council is pressuring us about an heir. Michael's expression grew thoughtful. And how did you feel? Catheran biology allows choice. She said, the question is not can. It is should. Michael met her eyes. Do you want children with me? Direct, honest, human. Seraph breathed in slowly. I did not expect to want many things I now want, she admitted. But I need to know something first. Michael's gaze didn't flicker. The violence inside me, he said quietly. Whether they would inherit it. Yes, he considered. Humans inherit many things: trauma, tendencies, talents. But we also inherit choices. The choice to be better. His voice steadied. If our children inherit my capacity for violence, then we teach them what my grandmother taught me. Strength without compassion is only brutality. Real courage is knowing you can hurt someone and choosing not to. Then he smiled, small and sincere. They'll inherit your honor, too, between us. I think we could raise someone remarkable, someone who can be warrior and scholar, someone who can choose. Seraph stepped closer, studying him as if seeing him anew. The gentle librarian and the deadly fighter were not contradictions. They were proof a person could carry darkness and still choose light. The council wants a traditional ceremony, she said. A conception announcement with the promise blade. And what do you want? Michael asked. Something that honors both our traditions, Seraph said. Warriors and storytellers. Michael's smile widened. I have an idea. There's an old Earth custom called a baby shower, usually after conception. What if we combine it with your promise blade ritual? Seraph's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. You would forge a blade for our child. Better, Michael said. We forge it together. Your strength, my precision, a weapon and a tool. Something that can protect or create, depending on need. Serath's throat scales warmed to a brighter jade. It is perfect, she said softly. It is us. Michael took her hand, and she let him, marveling at how natural it felt now. Outside, the Empire continued its ancient dance of power and ambition. But inside the library, among books that smelled of time and ink, among stories gathered from 100 worlds, they built something quieter and far more dangerous to old traditions, a partnership, not born from destiny or passion, but from the deliberate choice to see one another fully and to stay word by word, page by page, day by day.